Hello, everyone, and many thanks for joining this stream. News summary from Moscow program. Today is 29th of October. Now it's 4 past 11 in the morning, Moscow time. And as always, I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments, and hopefully, you will find this news segment informative and useful. And if so, I will ask her if I may to like the video, leave some commentary, maybe to share with your friends. This might help to reach wider audience. And uh, as always, dear friends, if you have any, if you want to support my work and this small media project of mine, you can do it through several means. Links are on this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. And also during the live stream, because I'm streaming on YouTube and Rumble simultaneously, you can use that super chat or rant feature on Rumble to donate and also to highlight any question or the topic, or you can become premium subscriber. I'm on my own right now, dear friends. Anya is not here, and therefore I will try to not miss if there is any super chat, right, or any question from other support platforms. But in case I missed it, I will highlight it during the next update. So, okay, that's being said, dear friends. Let's start with the news segment. Hopefully, sound is good because right before I launched the live stream, there was some technical issues. But I can see chat right now. No comments about some technical issues. So hopefully, all is good. And so let's start, dear friends, first with a short summary of the situation on a battlefield. First, Kherson region. As I reported earlier in my updates, main focus right now of Russian armed forces are on Karabel district, basically, of Kherson city itself. According to some reports, this island is under Russian control, and also this small island, Karantinsky or Quarantine Island, right next to it. According to other reports, battles still continue. Difficult to say because I am not there, but this is the area of Russian focus right now when it comes to Kherson direction. And also earlier there was reports that Russian armed forces established control on the right bank of the Dnieper River on Pridniprovskaya settlement and Sadovaya settlement, although for the last several days, I did not see any reports, any additional reports on that. So maybe Russian DRGs were operating in this area because if these settlements are under Russian control, probably by now this map, for example, which is I believe pro-Russian map, would acknowledge this already. Anyways, the Russian armed forces are becoming more and more active in Kherson direction, but no major developments are happening right now. When it comes to Zaporozhye, there is two main direction of Russian offensive operations. One is most western flank in direction of Primorskaya and in direction of Stepnogorsk. It's even though Russian armed forces are on advancing here, no major breakthroughs are happening for this moment. Russian troops are controlling parts of both these settlements, and another area in Zaporozhye region where Russian troops are on offensive also, or are significantly more active, is of course most eastern part of Zaporozhye. And according to latest reports, Russian troops are conducting operations to liberate all these settlements on the right bank of Yanchur River. According to some reports, Russian DRGs already are operating inside Uspenovka, inside Novovasilievka, Krasnogorskaya, and so on. But most importantly, Russian troops are getting closer and closer to main supply and support line of major stronghold of Kiev regime on eastern flank in Zaporozhye sector, which is Gulyai Pole. And according to reports, Russian troops managed to establish control over the settlement of Yegorovka in Dnipropetrovsk region. And if you take a look at the map, dear friends, from and Russia forward units of the Russian armed forces already approaching Danilovka settlement, and if true, If true, then one might argue that potentially, maybe even before end of this week, Russian troops will physically cut off this main supply and support line that Gulay-Pole garnison has from Dnipropetrovsk direction. So it's going to be a significant improvement of the Russian positions in this area, obviously. When it comes to Pokrovsk-Mirnograd direction, and there are many people are paying attention to this area, of course, especially lately. Well, reports are coming in that Russian armed forces established control over the Tryander settlement on outskirt of Pokrovsk Mirnograd, southern. This is southern outskirts. I guess clearing operation was continuing until now, and this clearing operation was finalized. Eastern districts of Pokrovsk mainly are under Russian control, and according to some military experts, some northern parts of Pokrovsk, also especially northern western side of the city, and even Kiev regime's propaganda outlets, even Western propaganda outlets, pro Kiev regime outlets, are forced to basically acknowledge that Kiev regime's forces are indeed in encirclement, and the only way they can enter the city and leave the city is on foot, and even then, if they are lucky, because entire area, this area, by the way, gap, let's say, between forward units of the Russian armed forces are under constant 24-hour control of the Russian military personnel, Russian drone operators, and so on. When it comes to Mirnograd city, which is located right next to Pokrovsk, reports are suggesting that Russian troops advancing in most southern districts of their city, and also forward units of the Russian armed forces were spotted in the northern main body of the city, in the northern part of Mirnograd also. And I guess we don't have to be like military experts to understand that once Russian troops will establish full control over the Pokrovsk, Mirnograd garnison would not have any chances basically to maintain their positions, and best they can do is to contact Russian militaries and organize safe surrender. Even calls have been aired, even on a Kiev controlled territory, not to listen to or not to wait for the command from a Kiev regime, because that command to withdraw or might never come, as it was the case during all the other Russian advances when relatively big towns were liberated. You remember Bakhmut, isn't it? The Kiev regime sacrificed tens of thousands of its military personnel in Bakhmut. So even on the Kiev controlled territory, some public figures are calling. How they are risking that much, I don't know. But even there, people are calling for garnisons of Kiev regime in Pokrovsk and Mirnograd to either withdraw without awaiting order, or to do whatever is necessary to save their lives, which means obviously to lay down arms and surrender. On the northern part of Pokrovsk Mirnograd, in a breakthrough, so-called breakthrough area, Russian troops continue to conduct offensive operations in Shakhova direction, but this settlement, Kiev regime's forces still are managing to hold on to their positions, at least in some parts of Shakhova, although, according to some reports, Russian troops are simultaneously were conducting offensive operations, not just towards the Shakhova, but also towards Sofievka, to cut off supply and support lines of the Kiev regime's troops in Shakhova. In any case, this breakthrough already did its job, and Russian armed forces did manage to force Kiev regime to divert its attention towards the northern part of Pokrovsk Mirnograd, while main body of the Russian armed forces finalized basically operational encirclement of this agglomeration. When it comes to Konstantinovka direction, another stronghold of Kiev regime in the DPR, there was no major changes on the battlefield. According to reports that I see, Russian troops step by step, street by street, are liberating most eastern part or most eastern districts of the Konstantinovka, and process might take some time, because as you can see, dear friends, it's quite a larger town, and obviously main focus of the Russian armed forces in the DPR at this point, at least, are concentrated on finalizing Pokrovsk-Mirnograd, or liberation of Pokrovsk-Mirnograd agglomeration. When it comes to Seversk direction, also no major changes on the battlefield. Russian troops are closing in on daily basis to Liman on the northern northern western side from Seversk. Forward units of the Russian armed forces already are in Liman. They are reaching the town through this forestry, according to reports. Same time, Russian forces are finalizing or continuing, let's say, liberation of Yampol settlement, which is located there basically in between Seversk and Liman. And as time goes by, I'm more and more confident that it is highly likely that Russian troops probably will liberate Liman first, and then they will focus on Seversk. We will see. We will see. In Kupiansk direction, Russian troops continue to neutralize concentration of the enemy forces. About 5,000 troops of Kiev regime are encircled in Kupiansk, as Russian head of Russian General Staff Gerasimov reported a couple of days ago to Russian president, and already there was about dozen of attempts of Kiev regime's forces in Pokrovsk to break out of this encirclement, but they were unsuccessful, and after taking heavy losses every time, these units of the Kiev regime that was attempting to leave the city were forced to go back to their original positions, and even there inside the city, it is less and less opportunities for them to basically hide anywhere, right? Because the Russian drones, not just Russian militaries, but Russian drones are monitoring the situation, and any movement is detected, of course, and the action is taken. In any case, before end of autumn, as I said, most likely Volchansk city on the most northern sectors of the Kharkov direction. Volchansk city, which is already liberated by 70% by Russian forces. Liman and Seversk and surrounding settlements, Kupiansk and Pokrovsk-Mirnograd will be liberated by Russian forces. I have no doubts about it. We will see. We will see, but I think most likely before end of November, we will see this significant progress of the Russian armed forces on the battlefield. To continue, dear friends, I give you this report from RIA Novosti, which is based on Defense Ministry's latest update, that overnight Russian air defense systems intercepted about 100 drones that was launched by Kyiv regime with assistance of NATO to strike deep into Russian territory. I can give you some specifics on that. 46 drones were intercepted over the Bryansk region, 12 over the Kaluga region, 8 over the Belgorod, 7 over the Krasnodar Krai. 6 drones were intercepted over the Moscow region, including 4 that was directed towards the capital of Russian Federation, Moscow. 4 drones were intercepted in Ulyanovsk region, 3 each in Crimea and Mariel republics, 2 in Stavropol Krai, and 1 each in Kursk, Smolensk, and the Tula regions. Unfortunately, yet again, quite a vast geography of these NATO strikes on Russia, and it is NATO strikes because, as it was said many times before, Kyiv regime itself has no satellite navigation, has no technical means basically to orchestrate this long-range drone strikes, flight path targeting data, satellite navigation, and in many cases, drones themselves are provided by NATO member states. Now, unfortunately, not all drones were intercepted, which is not even possible, actually. Now, sometimes, yes, air defense systems of Russia that are best in the world are intercepting all incoming targets, but every now and then some drones, unfortunately, managing to bypass air defense because I don't think it is even technically possible to secure sky for 100% of the time. Even tiny Israel is unable to secure its skies, right? What to say about biggest country in this world that Russia is. So unfortunately, some drones seems like did manage to bypass air defenses, and there, for example, reports are coming in about explosion and consequent fire in Simferopol, on a fuel where fuel tank was hit basically. So Ukrainian armed forces drone attacked the territory of Simferopol, the capital of the Republic of Crimea. Fire broke out when the drone struck a fuel tank. Regional governor Sergei Aksyonov reported, and well, this is the friends, I guess, first time when official admitted that there was a direct strike on a certain area, maybe fuel depot. No specifics there, but I guess this fuel tank was in a fuel depot, right? Maybe refinery. No details yet, but this is on my memory first time when it was said that it's not debris that failed. Usually that's what was said, isn't it? That everything was intercepted, but debris failed and caused fire here and damage there. This time, Aksyonov said directly that Ukrainian armed forces drone targeted the territory of Simferopol, and as a result of hit on this fuel tank, there was a fire, and emergency services are working to neutralize the damage and to deal with the situation. At this point, we don't have any reports about injuries as a result of this attack. Of course, if any update on that, I will share additional information in my next updates, most likely this evening at 7 o'clock during the live stream. Let's see if there will be no technical issues. And maybe this evening, dear friends, I will test my older notebook to do live stream. It does has some sound issues, or used to have at least, but at least that old notebook was not suffering from overheating and that kind of stuff as this one does. So yes, let's see what will happen. I will continue with some other news. TASS news agency is reporting that Russian armed forces have liberated more than 20 settlements in Dnipropetrovsk region, which is quite significant success, by the way, especially if you keep in mind that Russian troops entered Dnipropetrovsk region just recently, right? Just a month or two ago. So Russian servicemen from their east and center military groups liberated 21 settlements in Dnipropetrovsk region in 2025. Yet again, this is not for a whole year. Russian troops entered Dnipropetrovsk literally just a month or two ago, right? And already quite significant success here. Thus, the center fighters took control over their Dachne, Filia, Ivanovka, and the Vostok or East group of forces liberated Malievka, Yanvarske, Vorone, Novogeorgievka, Zaporozhye, Novoselovka, Хорошая, Sosnovka, Novopetrovskaya, Новониколаевка, Бирюзовая, Калиновская, Степовая, Вербовая, Алексеевка, Приволье, Peshipravная, Yegorovka. So, significant success, isn't it? Significant success of the Russian armed forces. And we should keep in mind, dear friends, that Dnipropetrovsk region, unlike DPR, is not that heavily fortified, first of all. And secondly, not that heavily urbanized as it is the case in Dnipropetrovsk, in Donetsk People's Republic. And therefore, once Russian forces will finalize creation of this massive, at this point, bridgehead in the Dnipropetrovsk region, and when order comes, basically, I think Russian advances in this region will be much rapid than it was the case either in LPR or in DPR, right? Yet again, because there is no much really fortifications in the Dnipropetrovsk region, and also it's a steppe area, mainly. It's a steppe area, and that will make it easier for Russian armed forces to advance, while other sectors, other regions, DPR, LPR, are tremendously heavily urbanized, right? And settlements are literally right next to each other, right? Towns and villages and so on. That every such settlement is a stronghold, isn't it? And obviously, all these strongholds were fortified since 2014 by enemy. Therefore, of course, it takes more time for Russian troops to liberate these areas. LPR is completely liberated. The regime is not controlling even a single settlement there. But in DPR, of course, there is still a way to go. And as I said, before end of this spring, I'm quite sure Russian troops will liberate in DPR across Mirnograd, Liman, Seversk, and all their smaller settlements around. And in Kharkov region, I'm quite sure Russian troops will finalize liberation of Volchansk and Kupiansk. We will see. RIA Novosti, meanwhile, is reporting that Belarus will place the Oreshnik missile system on combat duty in December. So Minsk will deploy the Russian Oreshnik medium-range missile system on combat duty in December. Belarusian President Press Secretary Natalia Eismonter confirmed to RIA Novosti. Just today, the military reported to their president on this matter. The military confirmed it will be in December, she said. And this is, I think, something that Western military experts, Western militaries will pay attention to. Maybe even reckless Western so-called politicians and Western elites in general, because Oreshnik missile system, hypersonic missile system, may not be intercontinental, although we don't know capabilities of this missile system. Really, it's highly classified. All we know about this system is that video that we have seen, isn't it, when this missile system was used for demonstration purposes by Russian side, when one of their enterprises were targeted on Q-controlled territory. You have seen those videos, isn't it? These warheads are hitting their targets with tremendous speed, right? And there is different reports. According to some, Oreshnik can carry 36 warheads. According to other reports, number of warheads might be less, but in any case, this is some unbelievable weapon system that cannot be intercepted. And from Belarusian territory or from Kaliningrad region of the Russian Federation, for example, Oreshniks, if we calculate that Oreshnik is a medium-range weapon system, let's say, with a range of 3,000 to 5,000 kilometers, then from Belarus and Kaliningrad region, and even from European part of Russian Federation, I mean, main part of the Russia, these missiles can hit literally any point in Europe, any point, right? So I think enemies of Russia will pay attention to these developments, that by December, Oreshniks will be on a combat duty, and maybe they already are on combat duty. Who knows, right? We're not going to get whole information about these highly classified weapon systems and about military developments, right? And dear friends, before I continue, let me highlight, if I may, especially for new members of our community, that this media project is completely subscriber funded, and that means exists only as long as I have your support, community support. And if you like my work, if you think I'm doing some good work, please consider to support. You can do it through several means. You can donate to this project through PayPal or Boosty platforms. You can subscribe. You can become a Patreon of the project and subscribe on my Patreon or Boosty pages. Also, there is a crypto option that very rarely used by members of communities to support, but it's there. What else? And during the live streams, as I said, you can use a super chat feature on Rumble or become a premium subscriber on Rumble. Of course, everything counts and helps tremendously to maintain this project. And many thanks to everybody who already helped and continues to support. Thank you. That's been said, dear friends. Right now, I can see chat and no complaints about sound, so hopefully there is no technical issues. So let's continue, dear friends, with some other news. So today is, I mean, this morning is relatively slow news-wise, but I did try to build a news update for you, anyways. And of course, I have to mention, dear friends, this breaking news, sort of, that we had yesterday. I spoke about it during the yesterday's evening update. That Russian Foreign Intelligence Service reported about preparations of the French military to deploy 2,000 strong expeditionary corps into Kiev-controlled territory, and according to SVR, orders already were issued, already was given by French President Macron. Let me give you some details on that. So, French President Emmanuel Macron is preparing to intervene militarily in Ukraine. Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service, SVR, has claimed in a statement published on Monday, the agency's press department suggested that he desperately wants to leave his mark on history, having failed as a politician and uh, despaired of ever pulling the country out of the long social and economic crisis. He does not give up the hope to go down in history as a military leader, as we are claimed. And probably they know what they're talking about, by the way. But I don't really have any doubts that SVR has information from inner circle of Macron. Um, Probably they should, right? It's Russian Foreign Intelligence Service that they should have a source of information from Macron's inner circle. So therefore, I think they know what they are talking about. Um, and SVR is also adding that Macron dreams of military intervention in Ukraine and is known for fantasizing uh, about Napoleon. According to SVR, the French general staff has reportedly already been instructed to form a contingent of up to 2,000 troops for deployment in Ukraine. The core of this force is expected to be made up of troops from French Foreign Legion, and they will try to recruit, according to SVR, citizens of Latin American countries, and most likely they already did. Most likely they already did, and not just recruited those people in Latin America, but already trained them and potentially even deployed on EU controlled territory. Although SVR is saying that uh, these troops are in Poland, already being deployed in Poland. But yet again, from Poland to keep control territory, it's nothing, right? So some of the units of this formation might be already on a Q control territory. So as we are stated that Legion personnel are already deployed in regions of Poland bordering Ukraine, where they are undergoing intensive joint combat training and receiving weapons and equipment. Their transfer to central Ukraine has reportedly been scheduled in the near future. The agency also said that France has already begun preparing for casualties, with hundreds of additional hospital beds reportedly being created to accommodate wounded soldiers, while French medics are said to be receiving field training to handle combat injuries. So this is, of course, big escalation. This is, of course, big escalation. Maybe this report from SVR is just part of the story, and most likely it is the case because obviously Russian intelligence service cannot share all the information that it has. It does not work that way. So probably this is just a part of the story, and it's not just the French army that is deploying its troops. Maybe already have deployed significant number of troops on Kiev controlled territory, but UK might be there too. And this time we are talking about regular troops, by the way. We know that special forces of France and the UK are on Kiev controlled territory basically since the beginning of special military operation, even before that. And they already suffered their heavy losses, right? But now we are talking about regular troops. And who knows, maybe it's not just France, but also UK, also Germany, some other NATO member states that are deploying their troops or are in full preparations to deploy their troops on Kiev controlled territory. And this might be the part of that next phase of escalation against Russia by NATO that I I have spoke about for so many times, right? Simultaneously with their potentially, by the way, simultaneously with their large-scale drone and missile strikes on Russia, that will be accompanied by massive terrorist attacks inside the Russia by assets of the Western secret services, also with simultaneous large-scale or unprecedented scale cyber attacks on Russia and potentially even attempts of decapitation strike against political and military leadership of the Russian Federation. NATO countries might have begun deploying their troops too, regular troops on the Kiev controlled territory. So that's why I'm saying this information may only be just a little part of a big picture, right? About that next phase of escalation that NATO is planning, and I think it's only a matter of time when they will go ahead with the implementation of this plan. Hopefully, Moscow knows everything about it, and hopefully we are as prepared as we possibly can. I mean Russian militaries and their political leadership and their society too, because it's going to be big, man. Globalists, I think, are planning massive assault on Russian Federation, combined assault, right? So hopefully we all are ready, not just to withstand their strike, but also to retaliate and retaliate with such a force and scale that after that, globalists and their allies will begin de-escalating. Let's see what's going to happen. And you might wonder what is the Moscow's reaction on this report of Russian Foreign Intelligence Service. And we have some comments from press spokesman of the Russian president and also from representative of foreign ministry. Let me give you that in case you have not watched my yesterday's evening live stream. So presidential press secretary Dmitry Peskov called the reports of France's plans to deploy troops to Ukraine alarming. We have quotes here. As for the information from Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, it is alarming. Kremlin spokesman said Peskov emphasized that the overwhelming majority of the EU countries are in their militaristic mainstream. Our troops are constantly listening to foreign speech and languages on the radios along the line of contact. So these foreigners are there. We are eliminating them, he noted. And also, dear friends, as I said, Maria Zakharova commented on that, official representative of the Russian Foreign Ministry. So commenting on SVR report, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova advised President Emmanuel Macron to send the French soldiers to guard their country's museums, where robberies have recently become more frequent. Russia emphasized that any deployment of NATO member countries' troops to Ukraine was unacceptable and risked a sharp escalation. Moscow called the statements about the possible deployment of troops an incitement to continue their hostilities. So quite a measured response from Russian side. Zakharova was ironized there. Better Macron sent those troops to protect their museums. Peskov also said not much really, although of course this step of France to deploy its troops, large number of its troops on Kiev controlled territory is a big escalation, and yet again it might be just a little part of an overall plan of next waves of escalation that NATO has. So hopefully we can not just laugh at our enemies and ironize, but hopefully we are ready. And when time comes, hopefully Moscow will make political decision finally and allow Russian militaries and intelligence services to do whatever is necessary to protect Russian citizens, to protect their society here and their country, right? And hopefully after that political decision will be made by Kremlin, if it will be made. Russian militaries and intelligence services hands will be untied, and we will see what Russia really capable of. Um, so we will find out. We will find out. I have nothing to add there. RIA Novosti is also reporting that Kiev regime, by the way, Kiev regime is lack, suffering from lack of money again and constantly, right? So Ukraine may be forced to stop paying pensions and salaries to civil servants if it does not receive financial assistance by the spring of 2026, according to Spanish newspaper País, citing EU sources. Um, Nothing new there. Nothing new there. Of course, Kiev regime and its NATO backers or globalist backers were hoping that they will force Belgium to agree on official stealing of Russian frozen assets, and globalists were planning to use those assets to finance Kiev regime. But Belgium said no, at least for now, and next attempt of globalists and globalist control regimes in Europe to pressure Belgium will be early December, I believe. And if they will fail again, if Belgium will again say no, they're not gonna participate in the stealing of the Russian frozen assets, then in that case, I guess it's the European taxpayers that will have to pay another like 50, 60 billion, at least, I guess, to finance Western backed terrorist regime of Zelensky. And when it comes to finances, this is of course constant topic. For the past several years, for example, Ukraine has been driving up a record budget deficit, hoping to cover it with Western aid. In 2024, for example, the difference deficit was 43.9 billion US dollars. 2025 budget was approved with a deficit of $37.3 billion and has already been amended twice to increase military spending. So it's much higher now than 37 billion. The draft 2026 budget in expenditures are approximately at $116 billion, and revenues are approximately predicted approximately to be 68.6 billion, which means that Kiev regime has to receive from somewhere if they want to pay any salaries or the pensions or whatever. They need to receive another 60 billion from somewhere, right? And this somewhere is, of course, Western taxpayers and European taxpayers, first of all, and American taxpayers and taxpayers from collective West countries in general. Yet again, no surprises here for us, because it's not just me or any other commentator on alternative media, but it was IMF, isn't it? Western institution, and the World Bank, also Western-controlled institution, that were saying that without Western financial aid, direct financial aid, Kiev regime would not manage to sustain itself for more than a couple of months. And it's true, by the way. That's the reality. This regime would not exist if not Western assistance, military and financial, right? Meanwhile, dear friends, as you know, U.S. imposed sanctions on Russian energy majors, Lukoil and Rosneft. Sanctions were implemented a couple of days ago, and as a response, Lukoil now is looking for sales of its foreign assets. And one of the countries from many that Lukoil has assets is Kazakhstan, and Kazakhstani government in upcoming days we'll have a discussion about topic of buying Lukoil assets, because of course they don't want these enterprises that Lukoil has there to shut down, right? Because that will create issue for the country. So probably they will be engaged now with Lukoil in some trade negotiations to achieve some discount And once sides will manage to find common ground, Lukoil's assets in Kazakhstan will be brought by either local government or by local companies, energy companies or else. And I think similar story will happen to all over the world where either Lukoil or Rosneft have their assets, right? And they did invest it heavily, by the way, worldwide, and invested with tens of billions of dollars, right? And the technology. So yes, hard times sort of for Lukoil and Rosneft, but yet again, they should not ever invested outside of Russia, I think, because it was so obvious and for so many years that at one point West will launch a major war against Russia, major offensive on Russia. It was just too freaking obvious. I don't know why leadership of Lukoil, Rosneft, or other Russian companies, by the way, big companies. I don't know why they are not seeing the risks, right, in a way that I can see, for example, right, or you can see, dear friends. This escalation was absolutely inevitable, isn't it? And West was moving towards this escalation at least. I mean, since the collapse of Soviet Union, basically, but at least from 2008, it has become absolutely clear that at one point US and there are other NATO countries, other countries from collective West will launch a major assault on Russia. It was just absolutely clear. But nevertheless, these Russian giants, Rosneft, Lukoil, and many others, by the way, still risk it and they invested tens of billions of dollars all over the world, and now they're all gonna lose it, most likely. Now they will lose most of their investments. And well, Lukoil asked, or will ask US, by the way, to let it sell foreign assets. Probably US will allow this to happen. It is quite embarrassing that Russian energy major is asking US to allow it to sell assets. It's very embarrassing, but they put themselves in such position, right? If they only invested here in Russia, they would have no issues, right? But they choose otherwise. And same goes for Rosneft, as I already said. US has given Germany, for example, 6 months to deal with the Rosneft's assets in Germany, and they will. And this is not all that we should expect when it comes to additional pressure on the Russian Federation. And for example, a US ambassador to NATO is threatening with more, right, pressure. I can give you some video, by the way, on that. I don't know why Whitaker is talking about sanctions and so on. He's a representative of Trump in NATO, isn't it? He should be more focused on military affairs. But nevertheless, nowadays in the West, anyone will use any opportunity to say some crap, to say some nasty stuff about Russia, to attack Russia, right? And Whitaker is no any different than others there, right? Among Western so-called elites. And well, let me give you a short video, dear friends.
President's point is very clear, is that we expect now, with these enormous sanctions that have been placed on Lukoil and Rosneft, that this will maybe be the thing to unlock President Putin coming to the table and ending this war, and at least entering into a ceasefire so we can negotiate a final resolution. But remember, as I've said before, President Trump holds all the cards. This is just one card that he's playing. There are many more. I was just today with CIA Director Ratcliffe here in Brussels, and we talked about a lot of other options that the president has available to him. And, President Trump is going to play those as appropriate. But again...
So more threats, by the way, from the West. And we should expect, by the way, more factual steps, not just statements, but more factual steps against Russia, from military steps and also steps, hostile steps in financial, economical terms. Right now, I can see in the chat, dear friends, question from Denny Deval. Levan, what about the German 100 billion assets in Russia? If Europe sees the Russian assets, will Russia confiscate the German ones? Most likely, yes. Most likely, yes, sir. I said quite a few times before that there is around 300 billion Western investments here in Russia. And once Western countries will go ahead and steal Russian assets, probably Moscow will confiscate Western assets to compensate, basically, to Russian sides that have their losses due to criminal activity of the Western elites. So most likely, yes, Western assets will be confiscated in Russia as a retaliatory step. Although this is my understanding of the situation, what political decision will be made by Moscow is anybody's guess, right? So probability is there that Western assets, if West will steal Russian assets, Russia will confiscate Western assets as a retaliation. So probability of that is there, but what is going to be political decision, I don't know. Maybe Putin will say, no, we are not touching those assets. Well, might be, by the way. I mean, who knows, right? I don't know. I'm no longer even trying to understand what Putin's policies actually are, what he's trying to achieve, right? Because this attitude that Putin and his administration is demonstrating towards U.S. administration, this extreme politeness, extreme diplomatic approach, no matter what level of hostilities U.S. is engaged in against Russia, Putin and his administration is still demonstrating friendliness towards Trump and his administration, and I struggle to understand that. I just struggle to understand what they are trying to achieve. Initially, I could explain this with the attempt of Moscow to somehow pull out U.S. to persuade American leadership that it will be best interests of American people and American economy and the U.S. itself in general to pull out the country from this proxy war against Russia. But I mean, it's 8 months now, right? Or 10 months, by the way, sorry, that Trump's administration is in office, and clearly Moscow failed to bring some sense into U.S. administration. If we are seeing anything, is a hostility from the White House or from the Washington, right? And therefore now I'm struggling to understand what Russian president and his team wants to achieve with this extremely friendly attitude towards our enemies. And Trump and his administration is our mortal enemy, right? They are not our friends, by the way. They are our enemies. And because of their actions, Russian citizens are dying. Not aliens, Russian citizens are dying. Civilians and militaries. So therefore, I'm struggling, as I said, to understand what Putin and his team wants to achieve. And therefore, I cannot give you any more clear answer on your question, Danny Waal. It will be logical if Russia will confiscate Western assets as a retaliatory step to compensate the Russian side, Russian actors that invested in the West. But just because this seems logical does not mean that that's exactly what Putin will authorize. We will find out. But anyways, dear friends, let's continue with some more news. And so, yes, more threats from U.S. Unfortunately, the situation is deteriorating, right? Despite all this friendliness of Russian leadership towards Trump and his team, Washington is responding with more aggression. And they will continue to do so, I think, right? TASS news agency is also reporting about Israeli strike on on the Gaza Strip. Netanyahu, the regime, resume committing crimes against humanity while killing Palestinian civilians. And yesterday, according to reports, at least as a result of last night's strike, by the way, at least 65 people were killed. Among them, more than at least 20 were children. Israel struck on Gaza hospital area, I believe, and they killed at least 65 people, minimum 20 of them kids. And that's what Israel does, by the way. That's what Israel does. I have seen reports that before this strike, Israel consulted their American side and received green light, kind of. And they went and killed more civilians. I said a million times before, by the way, that only way sustainable peace actually can be achieved in the Middle East is if world will, and when I say world community, I mean world. It already seems like too fantastic. This will never happen. But yet again, only way to achieve sustainable peace in the Middle East is to demilitarize and denazify Israel. Man. There is no any other ways, right? So if world community is non-existent, I guess Israel would not be stopped, so they will continue. Israeli fascists will continue to kill as many people as they like. All over the world, by the way, not just in the Middle East, but all over the world. They are killing people. If you think they are killing people just in Middle East, or you are mistaken, man. They are killing people everywhere. They can kill you no matter where you are. It's a killers, right? It's a nation of killers and mass murderers, by the way, genocidal maniacs, Israelis. Vast majority of Israelis are fascists, and if they would not go under their denazification programs, they will stay that way. They will stay that way. That's how it is, right? Meanwhile, there is another hotspot, of course, in this world, another Caribbean crisis, and we have quite interesting reports, by the way, on from different sources that allegedly CIA tried to kidnap president of Venezuela, Maduro. U.S. intelligence community was trying to bribe a pilot of Maduro and offering $50 million to take a plane with Maduro in designated areas in Dominican Republic or Puerto Rico, for example, and allegedly pilot refused to be bribed. There are some other reports that Venezuela's intelligence gets involved and that pilot disappeared. I don't know what happened. But reports are out there. That U.S. was trying to kidnap president of another country, man. Wow. It is what it is, man. And if they fail to kidnap him, they will kill him, by the way. At this point, probably days of Maduro are numbered. U.S. will kill him, and U.S. will kill many people from his administration, and God knows who else, man. U.S. is going in Venezuela. They will conduct decapitation strike. They will send their militaries in, and if people of Venezuela would not fight, U.S. will quite easily manage to occupy Venezuela. If people of Venezuela will fight, then the situation gonna be very different. We will see. What's going to happen. Also, dear friends, when it comes to Latin America, yesterday evening by Moscow time, reports that are coming in about mass shooting in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. Police was conducting some special operation, and I have seen videos, by the way, from the area, from the favelas in Rio de Janeiro, and it did look like a war zone, and gunshots and fires here and there. And according to report, more than 60 people were killed in that shootout between police and their gang members. Right, it was clearly like a war zone. So more than 60 people, including 4 security officers, were killed in a shootout between police and the gang in Rio de Janeiro. The G1 news portal reported. Death toll was later reported to have risen to 64. Rio de Janeiro police are conducting a major operation against the Brazilian gang Red Command in the favelas of their northern city. Around 2,500 security officers are involved. The Red Command is one of Rio de Janeiro's oldest and most violent gangs, controlling several neighborhoods. The criminals responded to police actions with their gunfire and their burning of barricades. They also launched drones armed with bombs against law enforcement. Who knows? Maybe those drone operators were trained by Ukrainian Nazis, man. Maybe, there are reports that many criminal organizations from all around the world, including from Latin America, have sent their members on a kill control territory to get familiar with their drone operations, with their high intensity combat, right? And I guess some of them survived and went back, and they are now teaching others how to operate in high intensity warfare situations. And I can show you a video, dear friends. As I said, there are a lot of videos that are circulating in the internet. I can give you one, not this one though. I can give you one video on that. It definitely looks like a freaking war zone, man. This is Rio de Janeiro. This is Rio de Janeiro, by the way. Does it look like a war zone? It does. So maybe this fight between law enforcement agencies and that gang will continue today, and I don't know. Probably we will receive information about more casualties as a result of it. But it seems like it's a war zone, man. But Brazil's law enforcement agencies have to do their job, isn't it? Unfortunately, many Latin American countries have a bad reputation in terms of criminal situation, right? And Rio de Janeiro, I mean, biggest city in Brazil, is no exception. Very bad reputation there, and this has to be dealt. This has to be dealt. It's not going to be easy, but it seems like Brazilian law enforcement agencies are on the track to deal with their situation. Right. A few more news, dear friends, and I will end this news segment on that. So, well, Trump invited leadership of Central Asian republics to go to US to have some summit about security issues and stuff. And this is, of course, not really good for regional security in Central Asia. A meeting might take place on November 6th, by the way, and this is bad. This is bad because, if anything, Anglo-Saxon elites and their proxies, including Turkey, are seeing Central Asia, especially republics that are bordering with China, as an opportunity to create initially to no-go zones or uncontrolled zones, then deploy in those areas on borders with China all sorts of terrorist groups from all over the world that are undergone training in Idlib province of Syria, including Uyghurs, by the way, including Uyghur ethnicity elements, and then Western is Anglo-Saxon elites, and their proxies are planning, I think, to infiltrate northern western parts of China with these terrorist groups from Central Asia and destabilize the region, whole northern western part of China, by the way, right? That's their plan. I have no doubts about it. I have no doubts about it, and that's why I'm saying that it is extremely dangerous for Central Asian countries to allow either London or the Washington or their proxies, by the way, right? Turkey or let's say countries from continental Europe, right? Elites from there. They are serving Anglo-Saxon elites, right? We all understand. French are serving Anglo-Saxon elites. Germans are serving them. Scandinavians, all of them, by the way. So that's why I say Anglo-Saxon elites and their proxies. So Central Asian public should be very careful because, I don't think you have to be a freaking genius to understand what the plan of Anglo-Saxons are, right? They want to destabilize Central Asia, create uncontrolled zones, deploy terrorists there, and then infiltrate China and destabilize Chinese Northwest. It's just too easy to understand, too simple, right? It's not quantum physics, and therefore, well, if people of Central Asian republics and their governments are not careful enough, they only can blame themselves. Because they shouldn't expect any good from either US or UK or their proxies, man. That is Turkey, of course, and I'm mentioning Turkey because most of Central Asian republics, by the way, as Uyghur people or ethnic minorities in northern western China, Uyghurs, Kazakhs, Turkmens, and so on, most of them are Turkic speaking. Right? And Turkey is actively using this element to infiltrate these societies, these countries, right, in Central Asia. And the Uyghurs also are Turkic speaking, and thousands of Uyghurs, by the way, of Chinese citizenship, with Chinese citizenship, have undergone training in terrorist camps in Idlib province of Syria, right? So this is a long-standing plan of the West, and they are moving to realize this, right? To implement this plan, and Central Asian republics therefore should be extremely careful. I mean, they might have peace now, but this peace can be destroyed literally overnight by Washington, London, and their allies, right? It is what it is. RIA Novosti is also reporting that, well, when it comes to US, dear friends, seems like yet another my prediction become true. I said long before Trump was even inaugurated that all these talks about fighting illegal migration and stuff is just a PR stand, right? Public relations operation, while in reality, nothing in general will be done, right, to tackle the issue, because I'm 100% convinced, by the way, artificial inflation of population in the US is an operation that is authorized and led by deep state, right? So both parties are playing their roles now, right? Democrats are for, according to legend, legend that deep state give them. Democrats are for migration and for these migrants, legal, illegal, for everyone. Republicans are not against it, right? But in reality, both parties are just acting based on orders of their deep state, right? Actual ruling class of the US, let me say that way. And they want to inflate population of US artificially, right? Because this 350 million population is definitely not enough for a country to maintain its relevance on a geopolitical scale, right? Or dominance, let's say. Relevance, okay, you can do it, but dominance, no, man, you cannot maintain dominance on a geopolitical, geoeconomical scale with such population, 350 million population, and subsequent market, right? Subsequent economy. And I guess decision was made by deep state, by US ruling class, to artificially inflate, right, population, to bring in tens of millions of people from all over the world. And that's exactly what is happening in past number of years, right? It's a long process. Although they also are seeing that there is this influx of tens of millions of people are creating some internal tension in the US. And to deal with this situation, they have ordered the Republicans to act as if they are absolutely against it and they're going to deport everyone and everything and they're going to do this and that. And well, 10 months, right? Before elections or during the election campaign, Republicans were saying that like 20 million people went in US in just last couple of years, and there were 20 million plus illegal migrants. That was the numbers, isn't it, that they were speculating with. Some even saying 40 million or something. Let's say 20. And even before Trump's inauguration, I was saying, man, this is just the games, right? That Republicans and Democrats are both playing under the orders of US ruling class. In reality, nothing will be done, just some PR stunts. And I was correct. 10 months since Trump's inauguration, allegedly, only around 500,000 people were deported. 20 million, 500,000. Is there a difference? But these 500,000 deportees will serve deep state in US and their agenda, right? And it will serve Republicans too. They will say, oh, you see, we shut down border. We deported 500,000 plus, and we're going to continue to do so, Let's see statistics for this year. How many people entered the US? And I'm quite sure, dear friends, more people entered the US, legally or illegally, than US have deported. This program of artificial inflation of the population in the US is not stopping. It's not stopping, by the way. People just would not know about it, right? US rulers will use all sorts of deceptions, right? PR stunts, propaganda, this and that, to keep people misinformed, disinformed, right? And they will continue their program. And I guess if they are successful before 2050, they will inflate US population maybe up to 400 million, 450 million even, if not more. Let's see. But this process is unstoppable. Absolutely. RIA Novosti is also reporting that gas prices in Italy have risen sharply due to a refusal to buy fuel from Russia under the Italian Prime Minister Giorgio Meloni's government. Spending on hydrocarbon imports have increased by a third over 3 years, according to RIA Novosti's analysis of the data from Italian ministers and the country's statistics service. And by the way, increase in price by third on energy means increased prices on everything, right? Because there is, energy plays key role in all the chain, right? All the chains, right? It's food supply or supply of just anything, right? And production. And so I guess in last 3 years, combined inflation was in Italy at least 30-35%. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I think that's the case. Members of our community from Italy can tell us what is going on. However, Meloni has yet to fulfill her promises. Hydrocarbon import spending in January-August increased by 31.4% compared to 3 years earlier, reaching 38.5 billion euros. Italy Italy is no any difference really than than any other country in Europe. By the way, they have governments that have no care about their people. That's all, right? That's all really. Also, dear friends, let me once again highlight that Moscow and New Delhi have agreed on the production of HG-100 civil aircraft. United Aircraft Corporation of Russia and Hindustan Airlines Limited have signed a memorandum of understanding on this matter, and this is the first time when India will build civilian aircraft since 1988. So you see, dear friends, on one hand, there is reports that US managed to force India to submission, and so New Delhi will no longer buy Russian oil. But on the other hand, cooperation continues, right? In some other fields, cooperation continues. And as I said before, by the way, if anything, right, Russian leadership and people here in Russia would not be angry on India if New Delhi will actually cut cooperation with Russia in energy field. But people here in Russia, from local elites to ordinary people, will probably feel sorry for India more, that they will not be able to withstand the pressure. And that means cooperation in other fields where cooperation can be done will continue, right? They're going to be no anger on part of Russian side because, yet again, we see India as a strategic partner, by the way. And there is mainly, I mean, vast majority of public here has positive attitude towards India, and this is not going to change. And that's a direct confirmation of what I just said, isn't it? That two major corporations in our aerospace industries of two countries will cooperate to build a Superjet 100, and who knows, maybe other planes follow. Maybe other planes follow. This is narrow body plane for local routes. Superjet store can range of this plane is about 3,000 kilometers, but this is just the beginning. Maybe in 3 to 5 years' time, two sites will begin producing, let's say, MS-21s too. And that's a wider body plane, right? That's a whole different story. It can be used on intercontinental flights, for intercontinental flights, I believe, right? Anyways, some positive news there, of course. And I also want to highlight, dear friends, this report. I mentioned this yesterday evening, but nevertheless, I think it is important, especially if you are working in Amazon, by the way, if you are a US citizen and working in Amazon. So that company, Amazon, is plans to cut up to 30,000 employees in its biggest layoff to date. The workforce reduction will surpass the 27,000 job cuts in 2022, and people will be replaced by AI and AI-run robots, right? And this process will continue, of course. This process will continue. Bernie Sanders just recently stated that tens of millions of jobs in US are under the risk due to rapid advances in AI and robotics, right? And I don't think this will touch on US only. This is going to be issue transformation of world economy from a mainly human run to AI and robot run will of course will have extreme impact, let's say, on humanity, right? In some cases in a positive way, in some cases in negative way, because tens of millions of people, potentially hundreds of millions of people, gonna lose their jobs, and will be forced to requalify or do something, right, to find another. So it is what it is. That's the new era, by the way. That's the era of AI and robotics that is coming, closing in very rapidly, right? And it will bring a great deal of changes to this world and world community. And this is it for now. This is it for now, dear friends. Hopefully you did like the news segment. And if you find it informative or interesting, please like the video. More likes and comments will help to deal with the algorithm, I guess, and maybe video will reach wider audience. And There was, let me check right now. There was no questions from Boosty. Uh, I guess there was no questions from PayPal too, or the support. Otherwise, I guess my wife would check it and send me message on that. But there was a on Rumble, dear friends, there was a premium subscription, and let me highlight this if I may. So, miss me with it. Thank you very much for gift of one premium subscription. Thank you very much for your support. Each such premium subscription, by the way, is $5 donation basically to the project. So thank you very much, Miss Me with it, for your support. Uh, if by chance I missed any donation or any super chat, dear friends, as I said, I'm on my own right now, but if I missed anything or my wife did not notice that she's at work at this point. So if she had no time to check it and we miss it, I will highlight it next during the next update. And also, dear friends, when it comes to these donations, usually during the live streams, I always highlight, right? If there is any question or commentary from PayPal, for example. But if you don't want your donation to be mentioned, just comment no mentioning, and that's gonna be it. I'm never using full name. I'm never sharing full name. I'm just saying first name to just to highlight, right, and say my thank publicly. But if you don't want to be, any mentionings there, of course, just send me a comment to uh, not to mention, and that will do. Right. This is it for now, dear friends. If in case you want to support my work, all the links are on this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. And I will try now to prepare new update for you. And this evening at 7 o'clock, if no technical issues, I will launch second live stream. Bye for now, and take care. Thank you.